What's going on, guys? My name is Benjamin, CEO and founder here at Bolt Deals, and today I'm joined with two of my clients from Greenbelt Property Solutions, Grant and Carson. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great. I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited you guys are here, obviously. You're from Colorado and you're from California. So my first question is, how did you guys actually meet each other and then decide to partner up?
You want me to handle that one?
Yeah, you got it.
We met each other pretty much just through Instagram.
Okay.
Just like everyone mostly does. Started off, doing a lot of dispo with wholesalers.
Okay.
And then
Let me ask you this. Why did you focus on dispositions before acquisitions? Because many wholesalers that start, they focus on acquisitions.
yeah, when I got into real estate, I know we'll go over that later, but when I got into it, I always had a problem of like, how am I going to make money on this? Because I ain't got no money, right?
Okay.
I'm working a 9 to 5, not paying me enough. Obviously, California expenses, right? So it's making like $4,000 a month, but trying to figure out how do I make money in real estate. And, there's the cold callers. You could spend, whatever it is, $1,000 a month for a dialer and call these on leads or whatever. But I just didn't really have anyone or a mentor. So,
Okay.
But I started seeing on Facebook a lot of these Facebook pages, a lot of deals in there where investors are saying interested. One post was like 50 people saying interested. And I knew wholesalers who were in the game from like real estate events and whatnot who had deals. And at the time, that was the way to like get your first deal was to like JV partner.
Okay.
And so I had actually bought in at the time, and that's kind of how I hopped into it.
Okay.
And then I started DMing people to try to get more wholesalers as like clients to like continue.
So you were pretty much like a dispositions agency, pretty much.
Kind of, yeah, at the time.
Okay.
Right. And then I ended up DMing him on Instagram.
Okay.
Because I figured those were like some of the more solid wholesalers who would have more solid deals. That's kind of how we met. Because he was doing land and he had like, I think it was 10 contracts at the time. And I'm fresh into the game. So 10 contracts to me at that time was like mind blowing because there's only wholesalers I knew were maybe doing one a month. And he was telling me he's got like this guy, Aaron, this other guy and this chick. I'm like, dude, this guy's got a little operation going on. Let me know more about this. And we
Because you know he was 20 or how old were you at the time? 19?
We started, what was I, 19, 18?
You were junior in college?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we met and just flipped the light switch.
So you weren't always a real estate investor. You said you had a 9 to 5 before. So what were you doing before real estate? Did you go to college, anything like that?
I did.
Okay.
After high school, I went to go play college at a junior college.
Okay.
Football at a junior college. And then you're talking like how did I get into real estate?
Yeah. What were you doing before you got into real estate? So you went to college. Were you trying to go NFL or what?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, in high school, I was really good at baseball, whatever. So I had a lot of scholarships as like a sophomore. But I got hurt. So sports is all I really know because my father was like big in sports.
Nice.
So just kind of took that on, and then got into college, got my just general education, but like barely passed. I'm pretty sure I got like a D in art, like just sucked. And then, and then I got a job as a 9 to 5.
What were you doing?
Working for, I don't want to say the name, but working for a large company out of California, inspecting power lines and whatnot. Cool. But the money just wasn't there.
Gotcha.
And unlike sales where there's no cap, you can make as much as possible. There was like no option for overtime. It was like 9 to 5. That's it. And like pay you just enough to get by to where at the end of the month, you still got to come back.
So when you went from your job in the power line space to real estate, was quitting that job hard? Because, and the reason why I asked is because there are a lot of people that want to get into wholesaling right now, but their biggest constraint is they have to put food on the table. So it's a challenging decision for them. So like, what was that like for you?
I mean, I just left not that long ago.
What do you mean?
Like, was it been 3-4 months?
Yeah.
Wasn't a hard decision for you?
Oh, it was a very difficult decision. And
Okay.
I didn't really have anyone.
Some convincing on my part.
He had to convince me. I didn't have anyone that ever did that in my family.
Okay.
And so it was pretty much just like a relationship with God, bro. At the end of it, it's like, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I could ever do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I had to take that risk. You got to take that risk.
Was it worth it?
100%.
Okay, I think we'll dive into why it was worth it in a second. But what about you, Carson? It's funny because I first met you when you were, what, 18, 19?
Around there, yeah.
19? And I was 18 because you're a year older than me,
Yep.
which is crazy. So what is your background? How'd you get into business in general?
Man, so, I mean, it all started around when I was like 16 years old. I was just grinding Grant Cardone videos. And I kind of always knew I wanted to kind of do my own business sort of thing. And, you know, at the time I was in college, so I was getting a finance degree. It was right around the transition period. So it was like right around COVID. And basically I was like on a fast track. So like my parents knew that like I probably wasn't going to do too well in college. So they basically were like trying to speed up my credits and trying to get me through as fast as possible. So I was like hitting community college credits, and then I went to CSU. And so during that time, I kind of wasn't super focused on the actual degree and like what I wanted to do career wise with that. I was really just focused on, you know, finding a business that I was interested in. And because of the Grant Cardone videos, I was just interested in real estate.
Yeah.
So it was basically like the two criteria was like how to make a bunch of money. And then, you know, I wanted to be social. So I wanted to do a job that I was speaking with other people. And so real estate kind of fit that criteria. And so around when I was like 17 years old, just getting out of high school, I was working at a fish shop, and I knew it was like, I really didn't like it. So
Why not?
Well, first of all, working at a fish shop is kind of gross. I mean, you're cleaning tanks. I mean, you're touching stuff you don't want to touch. So that wasn't for me. So I actually kind of had an advantage because I had such a bad job. It was like, this is terrible. I need to figure something else out. And so in the meantime, like I said, I was watching Grant Cardone videos, and then I kind of just fell into wholesaling. I just saw like maybe a video on TikTok, and then I just started doing research on it, and then, you know, just kept going with it.
Okay. And did your parents know you were trying to get into business at that point? Were they supportive of you? And again, I asked because when I got into business, my parents weren't that supportive of me. So I'm curious what your story is.
Yeah, what's funny is I actually was like trying to hide it from them for a while. Like I was kind of like almost embarrassed that I was trying to do something like that. I mean, that was like a bad belief because, you know, as I started telling them about it and they started seeing me making calls in my room, they started asking questions, obviously. And so, you know, they ended up being super supportive of it. And, you know, I got really lucky with that.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's how you got into real estate. And then you did a bit of real estate for like a year or two, and then you guys met and then partnered up. My question then becomes, a lot of wholesaling partnerships do not work, right? One person either does all the work, the other person fronts up all the money, and, you know, one person throws the other person under the bus. So my question is, how did you guys sort of form that partnership? What was that like?
So like he was saying, it initially started with a DM. He looked at like my followers, and I was following a bunch of people in real estate. And he basically shot out a DM. He was asking, you know, ask me about a couple of deals I had, and we ended up trying to do a JV on it. And basically from there, I just started sending him deals, and we just started getting closer and closer. And then from there, it like wasn't like something that we like had a formal conversation about. It just started making sense to just start working together and collaborating on deals. And then from there, it grew into a more formal partnership.
Okay. So when it comes to like roles and responsibilities in the company, what does that look like? Like, I know you're doing acquisitions, you're doing like, sort of walk us through that.
So, and this changes a lot. Like where we started is very different from where we are now. But so for the most part, we kind of have two separate parts of our business. So we have Facebook ads, we're doing houses, and then we're obviously wholesaling those. And then we have land. So those are kind of the two separate parts. And so as of now, Grant's handling mainly the houses and working with the closers that we have hired on that side of thing. And then I'm mainly working on the land. So we're getting them under contract and then wholesaling them.
So Grant, you're the one hiring the acquisition manager and training them, or what does that look like?
So we had a virtual assistant from the Philippines who was on land for the longest time. And so we, ran into some issues with him, so we had to let him go. So we decided, if we're going to do these Facebook ads, we got to get a closer on them. Right? So Carson's like a big Upwork guy. Right? So like he'll like interview a lot of people when it comes down to it. And so he made a post on Upwork. Two guys, I'm not going to say their name. Two guys reached out, or I think it was just one actually had reached out, and we interviewed him. We listened to some call recordings from Costa Rica, but born and raised in California and moved to Costa Rica. Like great on the call, right?
What do you think makes them great on the phones? Like when you say somebody's great on the phones, what is that like? If you break it down to characteristics, what does that look like?
Number one, man, you got to be confident. You got to be confident. Like if you're going to throw an offer out there, you got to hold that offer. Like, you got to have a reason why you're offering. And that's just what there's to it. So like, but again, like we spoke about earlier before the podcast, experience, right? So these guys, he has a partner and they both close. So the guy that we hired from Costa Rica, he's got a partner and they're both closers. They both have a different type of style of closing. One's, more cheerful, more getting down to the pain. The other one's
hard closer.
Just, we can offer you this, you ain't gonna get no more type guy. But they both had experience before doing it for PPC clients. And so
PPC clients, what do you mean?
There's other people that they've worked for in the past.
That would generate PPC leads.
For pay-per-click leads.
Gotcha,
So they've always been inbound leads, guys. We tried to give them some land leads. They didn't want to do cold callers, which is fine. Because I know, like, if I was to give any of his closers cold call leads, they'd quit on him too. I mean, he's even said that. So that makes sense. I mean, at one point in time, they were probably brand new, and someone had to train them. So there's still training that needs to happen every day.
Okay. So right now, because I know earlier today you guys just hired an acquisition manager, right? Or a closer.
Yeah. Well, and also I just want to add on to that really fast. Like another huge thing is I think for the most part, like so far in this business, we've been working with out of country people. And one thing that we noticed was, especially with these closers that we hired, they were originally from America and then they moved to Costa Rica. And one thing that we didn't quite understand until now was the cultural differences. So like somebody who's from America is able to have such a higher level conversation with the seller than somebody who's from like Pakistan or the Philippines. Just because they just don't understand just whether like slight language barriers and stuff makes such a huge difference when, making yourself feel familiar with sellers.
100%.
So that was another big thing that we noticed. But yeah, so we hired just today before the podcast. We actually just hired a new acquisition manager. He is from the Philippines, but he's going to be on the land side of things. So I'd say it's the cultural part is less important for land because people mainly have more of an emotional attachment for houses than land. So it doesn't take as much to get people to the finish line. When we're it's just a piece of property. They live in New York. They bought it because they were going to build a house on it 20 years ago, and they're like, yeah, man, you can take it.
So for you guys, do you guys prefer doing land or you guys prefer doing houses? Like what to you guys is more fun?
I mean, each
and
has
profitable, obviously.
Right. I mean, each has its pros and cons. So I think like with houses, the deal spreads are obviously quite a bit bigger. But it's less consistent revenue. So we'll have some months that are better than others. With the houses, it's more up and down. But the main benefit with the land with the smaller deal sizes, it's much more consistent. So we have way more consistent lead flow. We have a really built out process with it. So more consistent, but smaller deal sizes is the biggest difference.
Yeah, I'll touch on that too. I think land is one thing that you could fully delegate.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Out of the country.
Why?
There's less moving parts. takes less skill because of that. And so anytime you get a house, if it's not vacant, you got to coordinate with the seller.
Yep.
You got to put a lockbox, order photos, stuff like that.
I mean, yeah. Also, when you just think about like land it's just a piece of dirt. Like I don't have to schedule a showing for a seller or a buyer to come by and look at it. Like they're just like, when can I see the property? I'm like, go drive by whenever is basically the conversation. So it's just super easy to coordinate, showings especially.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the houses right now, and let's start with marketing in general. So what are you guys doing right now to generate leads for land or even houses?
Obviously, you, bro.
Okay. Well, let's dive into that.
Well, let's start here because I think I've done more houses than he has over the span of time, whether that is my own marketing or JV. Just been around it longer, or maybe not longer, but just more of it.
Okay.
Man, I've done every form of marketing besides PPC.
Okay.
Right. So I've done the door knocking. I'll never do that ever again. The thing is, for anyone who's new to this game, brand new, man, I'll be honest, if you guys think that it's free, it's not. Like, if you guys can't afford $1,000 a month, you might as well not hop into this game. But if you want to be a true entrepreneur and that's your goal, you got to risk $1,000 at least. Door knocking, it's just, again, it used to work. And the reason why it works so well is because not everyone was hopping on the phones. There wasn't there wasn't Facebook ads at one time for this. There wasn't websites for them to fill out at one time.
Yeah.
And so before all of that, it was real easy to be the only contact for that person.
Yeah.
And so door knocking was the ultimate way. I know a lot of the older wholesalers, such as that he's old or anything. But, at his time, I'm sure he did a lot of door knocking and direct mail, and it worked very well.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to do that, you might as well get into solar sales because you're going to be knocking the same amount of doors for a less return at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, done cold calling.
Okay.
Which works. Still proven method. It's I would say it's still one of your better marketing channels.
Okay.
If you are going to, or if you have the skills to close. But you got to run through so many leads to get to a contract. I know some states it's 30 leads.
For cold calling?
Yeah.
Wow, I've seen as like I've talking to a wholesaler, it's like 1 out of 80.
Yeah.
Leads to contract.
Okay. Well, that makes sense if somebody's like just starting out. But like if you have a sales team and like you've had people who are good, then
1 out of 50, 1 out of 80.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends how well that lead's qualified too.
Yeah.
That's also
right. So I mean, you get some of the big gurus, such as, the best in the game when it comes to cold call.
Yeah.
He's got qualified scripts. He's got a lead qualifier. Then it goes to a closer. So you can really dial in that marketing channel. But again, you got to risk some money because it's not free either. You got to get a dialer. You got to get a cold caller. Listen, I'm lazier than to sit on and go through 80 leads to get a deal. I don't have the dedication to do that. I'm sorry. So of course, inbound is a little bit more expensive, but that's where you're going to see your best return.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know the numbers off the top of your head right now?
For
your inbound for PPC Facebook ads?
Like as in like the how many contracts to
cost per lead?
Do a contract.
I mean, I wrote them down just because my memory's not that good.
All good.
But yeah, man. I mean, honestly, super impressed with Bolt. $20 to a lead.
$20 cost per lead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't find that. I mean,
and that's the other thing also is that like Facebook ads is probably one of the best starter inbound leads that you can ever do. And the biggest reason for that is if you want to go the route of PPC or even like just YouTube ads the cost per lead is so much higher, and you have the pressure to make that one call that comes in. If your lead costs $100, to make that lead work is so high that it's just like it's a brutal place to start.
Yep.
So if you're like looking to get into inbound leads, there's really not a better place. The only thing that's probably close is mailers, but once again, I mean, you got to have a built out system for that as well. But
Yeah.
Facebook leads is almost like the perfect place to just sample in a bunch of leads that are qualified enough to make something happen with it.
100%. And that's what I always tell beginner wholesalers, because Facebook, the feedback cycle with the way the platform works is so much quicker. So we can test something on a Monday and we can get feedback by like Wednesday of what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
And it takes less time for a lead to come in as opposed to like PPC, where the learning phase is like 30 days long.
Right.
So I absolutely agree with you on that. Okay. Do you know what your like cost per contract, average assignment, all those are?
Yeah. So I would say another thing with any inbound leads, is you guys start with sales. Everything starts with sales, because Ben could throw me 100 Facebook leads, and if I got no sales training, it doesn't matter how good that lead is.
Yeah.
I mean, I just not going to be able to close it.
Yep.
And then your follow-up system, like a lot of Facebook leads are not going to answer that first time. They think it's a little fishy with Facebook, of course, and so I think of a Facebook lead as like a warmed up cold call lead, like a hot cold call lead.
Okay.
You still have to build that connection with them to bring them to that finish line. Now, once in a while, you're going to find that needle in a haystack where they're motivated and distressed and they need a price right then and there.
Yeah.
And they'll accept it. Like last night, locked one up.
Okay. Let's tell us about that.
In my boxers, bro.
Okay.
At the hotel room. Yeah. It's actually here in Texas. Some lady, she called. She needed a quick sell, so I threw an offer at her, lowballed her. She took it. Got her tried to get her. I had the contract up on the phone with her. I mean, because one call, if you could do one call closes, that's the best you can. You can't do better than that.
Yeah.
I did have her at the closing stage, and then man, my eyes watering. Hold on one sec. Damn.
Is it the lights?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, he was on the airplane the other day and someone flicked something into his eye.
Yeah,
You've been bugging since.
yeah, it's been bugging. But anyways, she needed a quick sell, so I had her on the phone with the contract. But at the end of it, I put the signature in the wrong spot. I had my name as a seller, but anyways, we fixed it. She signed late last night, and so I was about to fall asleep. She called me at like 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So I answered it. It's like half asleep.
Okay.
She signed.
Do you know what the numbers on that one are?
Yeah, that one contract price is $45,000. Almost turnkey. Again, she needs to sell it. There's obviously it could be remodeled. ARV is like 155, but it's a small home, right? So tiny home. It's always good, less rehab. So 10K fee probably around
10K? Okay, that's not bad.
average.
Well, you're in your
for us.
boxers at 10 p.m. is not bad, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I was about
About to knock out.
yeah.
Okay, and then your cost per contract, do you know those?
Yeah, so let's see here. So cost per close deal is $1,700.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
It's not bad. So
Not bad.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the average for the industry is 3,000.
It's 2,500 to 3,000, correct?
Okay, so there you go. Ben has. Okay, just to give some of the viewers like lead flow wise, just some facts here.
Go for it.
Since December 11th of 2024. So how many days has it been?
Like 30 plus 40,
Okay.
40 days?
Yep.
All right. So for the viewers, for 40 days, 190 plus leads, go find that somewhere else. You're not going to.
No, you won't.
Now, with that being said, we started with Nationwide, right? So that is a very high lead flow, $20 a lead. Just because I'm saying you're going to get that doesn't mean you will. Every ad, I
I
believe.
tell every single client that, so I'm glad you said it.
And I believe but the more you guys, your process is so well that your goal, right, is to get those higher quality leads at a lower
cost per lead. Yeah.
Right.
So there's a bunch of things. I'll tell you guys what we're doing for your guys' campaign. So Matt, the media buyer who you guys know, so this was towards the end of last year, we actually found a glitch. And I've never shared this before, actually. So it sort of bugs me a little bit because I know some competitors are going to be seeing this. But there is so on the campaign level of your ad account, there's something called a special ad category, special ad housing category. We call it SPAC, right? For short. So there's housing, there's credit, there's politics, and then there's one more I can't remember, right? So the point is, normally we run it under the housing ad category, right? But then one of our other clients, when Matt was setting it up, he accidentally clicked credit, right? And we still submitted the campaign and went live and everything. So when we're on our client success huddles with our entire team, where we go through every single client account, we notice, like, why is this guy's cost per lead so freaking low?
Yeah.
Right? So we go in, we thought it was something on the ad level or the ad set level, like the locations he was targeting or some of the interest or the audiences. And it wasn't that. It was actually something on the special ad category. So what we did for all clients moving forward is we would split test housing ad category versus credit ad category, because what we found out is that Facebook does not care what SPAC you choose, ad category you choose. Rather, they just care that you choose one. So that one, it's literally one button, right? It cut almost all of our clients' cost per lead in half overnight without sacrificing lead quality, because now you're fishing in a better pond, basically. So that's something that we're also doing. In addition to that, the reason why your cost per lead is so low is, number one, because of the markets, and something that you do that our team absolutely loves is the feedback you guys give, right? And here's what I mean by that. So if you guys are running ads right now with your marketer and they're not asking you for feedback loops of what leads are good, what leads are bad, what markets are good, what markets are bad, and how to optimize, you're in big trouble. So that's something that you guys are doing right now that has been absolutely amazing and helpful when it comes to scaling the campaigns. So that's the marketing. Let's talk about the sales process. Let's dive into that.
Oof. What part?
Let's start at the intro. Like, a lead comes in, what happens?
Yeah. So again, I would say this to the viewers again. If you guys, whoever's new into wholesaling, even if you're a couple months in, I gotta highly recommend for any sales process. He's got the 10 days of hell. I think it used to be 12 or 10. Now it's 8 maybe. So we actually incorporated that, right? Because just because it's an inbound lead, can't expect it to be sunshine and rainbows. Like, they're just not going to answer all the time.
Yep.
And so in the CRM that you guys provide, we're able to do whatever. And I think it's go high level, but it's your version of it. In there, we've created pipelines for 10 days of hell.
Okay.
So second that lead hits, within the first minute, I've pounded and pounded and pounded the closers to hit that lead within the first minute.
Yep.
Now sometimes it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And in some cases, 17 to 20 minutes. But within that first minute, that conversion rate from just hitting that lead within that first minute of it coming in, I'd say it's got to be like 60% higher than contacting it anywhere.
For you, because obviously people say speed to lead is important, but why do you feel like speed to lead is so important? Because for the way I look at it, it's like it's such a simple thing to just call your lead when it comes in, but people still don't do it. So, like, for you, why do you feel like speed to lead is so important?
Attention span. I mean, think about it as this. You go on Instagram or think about it as this. You go on Amazon and you're shopping. You need something. You go on Amazon. You see it on there at a good price.
Yeah.
You add it to cart.
Yep.
And then you get a notification.
Yeah.
You check that notification, texting someone, now you're sidetracked. Okay. Well, that intention span, now it's going to be an entire day before you go back to Amazon.
Yep.
Okay. But if someone noticed that that you were on Amazon, you left Amazon, and they called you up, you're going to go right back to Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's as simple as that. So when that lead comes in, those people, if we're not hitting them right away, They filled that form out. Now they got in their car. Now they're at the grocery store and they're not answering any calls or whatever it is. But if you call them right away, usually it doesn't matter where you're calling from, they're going to answer that call. And it's just because they're on their phone right now and they answer that call. There's just that conversion is so much higher.
Gotcha.
Like I couldn't give you the direct percentage of it, but it's up there.
It's like a 70% increase if lead is contacted under 5 minutes.
Right.
Yep.
So, for example, there's those cases where they don't answer. So what we do is we leave it in the new lead untouched. Okay. We continue to hit that throughout the day. Now I know some gurus they'll shoot for like 17 points of contact within the first day of it coming in.
17 or is this in the first day?
17.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Within the first day of it coming in. Not that disciplined, right? So, I mean, we're not looking to bombard someone that much.
Yeah.
But we hit them twice in a day. So it's 2 calls and a text. If they don't answer, that goes to the first day of 10 days of hell.
What does that first 10 days look like?
Yeah, so that first 10 days, so day 1, and we actually utilize Samantha for this.
Okay. Samantha's one of our lead managers.
Right. So she's good at, she's actually, believe it or not, she's almost maybe a wizard, right? Because she gets a hold of these leads after like 6 days.
She's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it goes into that first day, first thing in the morning and afternoon, we attempt to contact that lead. If it doesn't, then I think we've automated it now to where we don't have to change the pipeline stage. After 24 hours, it's automatically going to move it to the next pipeline. And so every single day, there's instructions at the top saying 2 calls and a text.
Yep.
And we go in there, we contact those. They go to the 10 days of hell throughout the entire 10 days and they don't answer. Then it moves it to 10 days of follow-up. What that does is after about a week or 2, it sends an automated text every day for 10 days. And then after that, it'll go into dead lead.
Okay.
So.
And then let's say, Samantha calls up that lead and gets them on an appointment. Does it go to you, Carson, or what does that look like?
So if she'll do her basic report gathering.
Yeah.
So she'll get, price, timeline, etc.
Yeah.
From there, she'll book an appointment. She doesn't assign it to anyone because we have almost 4 people who can handle these leads.
Yeah.
But she will book an appointment and put that into an appointment for a time, etc. And then it's our goal to go on there and find that and give that person a call.
Having Sam in place or even a lead manager on our team, does that help you guys or speed up the workflow of, managing the leads, or what does that look like for you guys?
So, yes. And we didn't actually think about it until recently. She's always been there, but we decided let's not use her just because we had our own system. But what we didn't want to do, and it's good that if anyone has a closer, whether it's outbound or inbound calls, that you have a cap on how many leads they're to handle. Because the lead follow-up becomes, it decreases.
Yeah.
And so what happened was we were getting bombarded from your company with like 10 to 12 leads a day. And honestly, it was too hard for everyone to handle those for a couple weeks there.
Yeah.
And so
it's like a blessing and a curse because clients come to us asking for a lot of leads, and when we give them too many, they're like, hey, slow down.
Right. Yeah. And what happens was they'd go into that 10 days of hell, which mandatory, we got to hit those.
Yeah.
And the new leads that come in, that it was just too much. So decided, let's put her on that. She sets an appointment. We can continue hitting those brand new leads that come in because those are priority.
Okay. And then Carson, what do you do in that sales process, if anything?
So like you were talking about earlier, I'm not as much involved in the houses. So at this point, I'm kind of almost out of the houses. The only thing that I'll sort of do is I'll sometimes underwrite deals and just kind of give my opinion on, where we're getting properties. And I'll handle a lot of the strategy around where we're targeting ads also. So I'm big on the KPIs. I run all the, the data on how fast we're getting to the leads. And that's actually something that we send back to our team as well. Like we make them aware of the stats of this is how fast you've been getting to the leads, just so they have that feedback. And then I also do a lot of training. So I'm on there with the closers. I'm kind of giving feedback on how they're doing with the calls. But I'm mainly on the land side of things.
Gotcha.
To that.
You mentioned bringing up your KPIs to your team. So I want to sort of dive into leadership, right? And I say this because this is something that I've struggled with, and I've noticed a lot of real estate investors, they struggle with leadership. So I'm curious, like, what does your management process look like when it comes to leading your team, actually getting the most output from them per unit of time?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is it's sort of a mindset before you even come into talking to them in the first place. Like, I never, when I'm giving, like, if I notice something on a call that, like, I wouldn't necessarily do, I never come into it. I'm just, like, telling them information. It's like, you need to change this. You need to do this. I'll kind of phrase the question and ask their opinion on it first. So it kind of feels like we're on the same side of the table and we're both trying to get more leads so we can both do better. So I'll ask their opinion, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think you could do better in this area? And then I'll raise that feedback. I'm like, what do you think about this? And then it kind of just makes a better environment to where it doesn't feel like I'm authoritarian over them and everything I say they have to do. Like, I want them to be on board with it and make sure it feels good for them also.
Do you feel like that helps with company culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost everything. I mean, cultures that have, like I said, authoritarian leaders in there where it's like everything's either the way they do it, and if it's not the way they do it, it's not going to work or you're out of the company. Like, we just don't run that way. We try and first set up people on the hiring process, people that are open to feedback and open to discussion. And then from there, once you have the right people in place, you're able to have super high level conversations about, improving the sales process. And
okay. So you mentioned that whenever somebody is doing something that, let's say needs improvement, you sort of get them to almost admit that they made a mistake and sell you on why they're open to feedback. Is that right?
Yeah. So, like, when I bring up an issue that I see, I'll first ask their opinion. I'll go to a certain part of a call and then I'm asking, like, what are your thoughts on this part of the call and the way you worded this? And because there's also a part of it that maybe they're doing something that, like, is better than what I understand. So I first before I tell them to change something, I want to hear why they're doing something. So I'll ask them, what are your thoughts on this part of the call? And then once they tell me it and I get an understanding of why they're doing it, then I'll go in and give my opinion on it and then ask them their thoughts.
So another thing, since we're on this topic of hiring and recruiting / leadership, you brought on somebody today. How do you go about setting expectations and setting standards of, like, here at Greenbelt, here's how we do things, and here's how we want to set you up to actually close deals and make money?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question because I think that's one of the biggest struggles starting out is you don't necessarily have expectations or have the experience from past employees to know what to set up. Mm-hmm. So it obviously helps to spend a lot of time before you even hire your first person to know what you expect them to do and make that clear day one. So we go in there on day one and we explain what KPIs we're looking for. We talk about pay, obviously, and we make it really clear on day one so there's no surprises that happen later on.
What are some hiring mistakes you made?
Oh man, I mean, I think we've done them all. I think the biggest thing is you don't want to jump after the first person that you interview, which
Why not?
I think because the other person's job is to obviously sell you on themselves. So I think that most people are really good at that, and I think that you'll get excited about hiring somebody, and you'll just pick the first person that you interview. And so I would say, just doing a lot of volume is really what it takes, and having clear standards for what you're looking for as well. So we've set out stuff that we're looking for in a specific person for that specific role, and we'll do like 10, 15 interviews before we even, we stop and even look back at the people that we've talked to and, make a decision there.
So when you guys say you guys have specific standards and expectations you guys are looking for within your team, let's say for an acquisition manager, what does that look like? And the reason why I ask is because if somebody's watching this and they're pretty much tapped out of taking appointments with sellers and they need to hire an acquisition manager because that's their constraint, what are some sort of checklist items that you could share?
Yeah, so what we just touched on is the absolute number one thing is just a willing to hear feedback and willing, just a willingness to want to get better at the role they're doing is absolutely number one.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is just by asking questions in the interview about like their past work and their experience. And then another thing, like I just said, is experience. I mean, like we try and get people who've worked with other big companies already and kind of already understand kind of how a wholesale company works because usually they're more set up then.
Gotcha.
You want to talk about the whiteboard?
Oh, yeah. So, another thing is this
is awesome. This is perfect.
This kind of touches more on what we're doing, with a partnership and how we're able to have it successful is we have a digital whiteboard. We use Lucid Spark, shout out to them. And it's basically an infinite whiteboard. And anytime we have a meeting or we talk about anything, we always write it down and we hold ourselves accountable. We'll set a date on, we'll do one thing we'll do is what's important right now. So we'll set up on the whiteboard. We're going to go what do we need to get done today, this week to push the ball forward. And so we'll put that, and then we'll have a date that we go back to check if we actually did those things. And so, I mean, that goes for, just tasks within the business, and then also employees. Like we'll have really great discussions on, what we're looking for in an employee. And in the past, we'd have that discussion. We talk about great things and have great ideas, but we never write it down, and we kind of just got excited about talking about it.
Yeah.
But we never actually follow through with it.
Yeah. So it's an open loop. So from what I understand, the Lucid Spark app for you guys is like a roadmap board or what is it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, so they have features with roadmaps, but we literally just use the whiteboard and black text, and we just write down stuff and we organize it that way. Is kind of how we do it.
How do you guys plan your months and really establish goals you guys want to hit? And the reason why I say this is because, Grant, I think it was beginning of last year. Oh no, end of last year of 2024. You put down one of your goals is to hit solid 100K a month. You posted it on your story, and I screenshotted that. We have that saved in your guys' Slack channel. So if you don't believe me, I'll show you later. So how do you guys go about setting goals? And what is your goal moving forward, and how do you guys plan on actually achieving those goals?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing is, once again, the whiteboard. So we write stuff down. When we have goals, whether it's revenue or team goals, we write it down and then hold ourselves accountable to it. But I mean, we structure it differently. So obviously there's longer term and short term stuff. So for on the day-to-day basis, we kind of just have stuff. We kind of have our own tasks, so we won't necessarily put that on the whiteboard. But if we ever feel like we have a moment where we're kind of not on the same page with something, we'll stop everything, tell everybody to leave the meet. We stop sharing our screens, and we just sit on the whiteboard and we just discuss the things that we're thinking about, and we write everything down that we're feeling at the moment.
Communication's huge.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you guys handle those tough conversations? Because I mean, I think you guys can both agree that it's not all rainbows and unicorns. You guys aren't always happy, lovey-dovey all the time, are you?
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Carson does something that's very valuable. Okay. And I mean, it's almost a relationship advice type thing, because what he'll do is, whether it's me or whether it's an employee, if a snarky comment is brought up,
like what? What do you mean?
Just
snarky?
Something like,
just the first sign of frustration.
Just someone, I didn't get paid. I didn't get holiday pay. Right? It's just something snarky.
From your team.
From team members.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or a partnership.
Whatever it is. Something that's out of the blue that was said, that's just not on topic, but you can tell that they're heated up about something. Carson will immediately stop. He'll say, all right, stop sharing your screen, or let's just stop right now. He'll sit up in his chair and he'll call your name out, put you on the spot, and said, what's going on? Tell me what's happening.
Not in front of other people. It's just
not in front of other people, but he'll call you out.
Yeah.
And then that almost triggers something in your brain, and you let him know. And one of our virtual assistants, we were both there, he did that. One of our virtual assistants said a lot of stuff to us. And so
stuff that we weren't even aware of, stuff that we weren't even thinking about. He mentioned something, and we stopped the conversation, and then we heard the whole scoop.
Can you share a little bit of what happened there?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing was it was a lack of communication on mainly pay growth and where we were at with that, and then also he would sometimes work weekends, and because so he's in Pakistan. That's the person we were talking about. There's certain holidays in Pakistan that we just were completely unaware of, because we're just not in tune with Pakistan culture.
Yeah.
And the whole time we didn't realize that he was going out of his way and working on holidays, and it was just something that we were completely blindsided by. And because we stopped the meeting, we saw exactly why he was frustrated. And so now that we heard that, we immediately the next day changed that. So it was that was really important.
Gotcha. I want to take a step back and talk about markets, right? Because for you guys, we started nationwide, targeting to when you guys first came on, and then eventually we narrowed down to more specific markets. So I'm curious, what is your guys' sort of process when it comes to actually selecting the right markets to go after?
Is this in general?
Yeah, in general.
Okay. I mean, I guess we could talk about Facebook. ads
Yeah.
specifically for houses. Can you define your question a little bit?
Yeah. So like, in order to start marketing in any channel, whether it's cold calling or text blasting or direct mail, you obviously, once you select your channel, you need to select your markets of what you're going after, right? So some people like, for example, Florida because it's saturated, there's money to be made there, or they'll like Texas because, there's no non-disclosure laws or anything like that. So what do you guys look for in like markets to know like, hey, this is a profitable market that we want to pursue?
So I'd say from this point in time, there's a difference of what we were looking for to what we're going to change and look at.
Okay.
But I'm not going to get to that because that might be a bottleneck that's broken and we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
But what we were looking for that still found success was, of course, markets that just had a good real estate flip rate. So
what do you mean?
There's a lot of neighborhoods where you can tell if there's a lot of houses being flipped. You could just see it on Google Earth. You could see on Zillow everything that's been sold bought from investors. So if you have, we have Privy. So Privy's
Benson. Right. Yeah, I know. But
so on there we can see mainly how many houses have been flipped by investors, what they bought them for before, what they sold them for.
Okay.
If there's a lot of that going on, then we can consider that a good market and kind of just note that.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, Ben, I'd say it comes down to what as far as being able to put an exit in. So, if you only know how to do cash, it's going to be tough for you, but I'd say you'd want to stick to like really hot markets.
Okay.
And hope that you get a deal. But if you have other exit strategies like novations.
Are you guys doing novations right now?
Yeah, so we're trying to bring those in-house. Was using for the longest time.
Okay.
The only issue is that they're looking for a $30K fee minimum. And the only down factor to that is because there's still money to be made on a $20,000 fee.
Yeah.
Right? But they need to split that 60-40, 50-50 sometimes. And so they're looking for enough spread there. But if it was in-house for them, they'd take $20K. So we're trying to take that in-house, regardless of the fee size.
How do you guys plan on taking novations in-house?
Pretty much just sales.
The biggest thing is like building relationships with realtors.
Okay.
So you need to find investor-friendly realtors who are, who have really great communication and know exactly what our business model is the number one thing. So the biggest thing is when we get a deal in a market, we have a lockdown process on reaching out to agents and filtering and asking them the right questions on, if they're able to handle our lead flow.
Okay. Are you guys doing any other exit strategies besides novations?
Yeah.
Cash?
Yeah, 100%. So one thing we're big on is just learning all the time.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, I believe before we started this podcast, I had joined a while back. So that was the first real estate strategy I knew. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered. And so these guys all have different exit strategies. Sub-2, cash.
Yep.
There's no. Right. So you kind of learn by just. There's a lot of wholesalers that don't even know, these top guys, or they don't know what it is. They don't know any of that because they're not there to learn.
Yeah.
We know all the exit strategies, at least what's out there.
So let's say if you could talk to yourself when you were first starting out, right? Like when you were 16 or 2 years ago for you, Grant, what are some mistakes or what are some lessons that you could share with that younger version of yourself starting in real estate to speed track that way to success? Or I should say speed track to your first deal.
Getting in it earlier.
Okay. So what about action steps?
Ooh,
how would you learn about real estate? Because if you're starting out, let's say you have no money, for example, how would you learn about real estate and actually understand how to fill out a contract, how to find buyers, all that nitty-gritty stuff?
Yeah, so networking events, very valuable
What?
to kind of just get a better understanding of what real estate is. I mean, you're not going to learn how to wholesale. You're not going to learn how to do that. I think it's going to take a lot figuring out yourself or figuring out someone who's done it and pay them to show you or build that connection. Man, I got into real estate because I picked up a book about real estate.
What was the book?
Skip the Flip. Okay, so it's a red cover. Hayden Crabtree.
Who?
Hayden Crabtree.
I have no idea. Who
Big storage unit guy.
I don't know.
It's a very good book. It doesn't teach you about wholesaling, but it teaches you from A to Z how to hold a rental. And so now once I read that book, I was like, yo, I need to know more about this.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So you guys,
Just to add on to that also, like I think one of the biggest things when you're starting out is any of the big marketing channels that are spoken about, like cold calling, SMS, inbound leads, mailers, all those strategies work incredibly well. So I would say if you're going to get into this, I would pick one of those and just do that one. I would just have hyper focus on one marketing channel, because I think how a lot of people get burned out is they'll try one thing for a couple weeks and then they'll not get a deal and they'll move on to the next thing.
why do you feel like they'll quit on a marketing channel so early? Like, why do you feel like that's the wrong thing to do?
People are. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just expectations on how fast it'll come. So like they'll feel like, let's say for cold calling example, they'll be making calls and get a bunch of no's, and they'll feel like they're not making progress, but that's the progress is just all the no's and just going through just the repetition of that. And you only get to see that after, about 3 months of one marketing channel, I say is a good time period to test it.
Yeah.
And then once those 2 months happen, you're like, oh wow, all that stuff I was doing, I was learning this marketing channel, and now I'm really good at this marketing channel, which is so important.
Then people want to get rich quick.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist.
No, there's a quote that a friend told me. It was, do you want to get rich quick or do you want to get rich for sure?
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of my favorite quotes. Okay. So numbers now. Let's dive into the numbers. Last month was December of 2024.
Okay.
What numbers can you guys tell us? How many contracts did you get?
Yeah, so
Projected assignment fees, all that good stuff.
we were nationwide,
Correct.
which hurt. So we switched that up a little bit.
Correct.
And that goes back to like why we're learning to do in-house novations and whatnot, because a lot of those cash contracts for the nationwide leads will hurt you. So 192 leads, cost per lead was at $20.
Correct. $20.53. Yep.
Yeah, and then per deal is $1,700.
$1,700 cost per deal, not a cost per contract, right?
Per deal.
Uh-huh.
And then average deal size, 11,667.
So if we do $11,600, we divide that by 1,700 cost per deal. That says 6.8 ROAS. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, it's not Cardone 10x, but we'll get there.
Yeah, not yet, right?
Now,
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
so there's always issues with a lot of inbound leads.
Correct.
So not everyone's, I mean, you can't go into inbound thinking, like you said, it's going to be sunshine and rainbows.
It's not, no.
Right. What you'll find out is that there's a lot of people already under contract who are now going under contract a week or two later from filling out a form. Just because maybe that wholesaler had a bad, there's a relationship. There's a guy I know named, he's very good.
Is the Indian guy in
Yeah.
Lumen?
Yep.
Yeah. His wholesale company, they factored that the relationship you have with the seller during the contract time is just as important as the lead to a contract.
Why?
And because it's a great point, because what happens is if you have that dedication just to get that lead under contract, and then you stop talking to that seller until a week before closing, you're probably not going to get a hold of them, or they went under contract with someone else. Something happened there because they're unaware of what's happening. And so it's very important that if you can treat that lead as a lead until the finish line, and you can consistently update that seller every single day, that seller is going to work with you and only you. And that high quality lead is going to stay at a high quality conversion, and you're going to have less problems with that lead.
Do you feel like that keeping the seller in the loop and being transparent with them throughout the entire process has helped with your guys' contract to close ratio?
Obviously, we're working on everything.
100%.
And so that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But just a quick summary of why I know that that's an issue is because we had locked up a property in Jackson, Missouri, and the seller, I knew a wholesaler who had it on Facebook, the property, so I contacted him.
Yeah.
And he said he's been under contract with that seller, but the seller had told me that the guy ghosted him, right? And because the wholesaler stopped talking to him, he went ahead and started filling out other Facebook forms.
Wow.
Now, someone like me could go file a memorandum, and that guy's original contract is no longer any good because I filed a memorandum, and he didn't even open up title yet.
Wow.
Right? So there's those things. A lot of wholesalers don't open up title until they get a buyer. But you get some very experienced wholesalers, you will find that issue. So 8 of our contracts were in 2 rural areas. Okay. So there was 4 that were under contract with other wholesalers. We decided to play the nice people, the nice guy.
Yeah.
Just drop the contract and, try to find the wholesaler and notify them of it or kind of make a deal with them.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. 5 of them had title problems. So there's a total of 23 contracts out of 192 leads.
Okay. 23 out of 192.
Right.
23 out of 192. That's 1 out of 11 leads to contract.
Correct.
Yep.
With a good closer on the phone. So if you don't know how to close.
Who's the closer on this?
On a lot of these, I'd say it's myself.
Okay.
But there's been a few in here where it has been our closers.
Okay.
But again, we're still newer to this. So the goal is to replace them with me.
Gotcha.
Okay. And Carson. Carson can close this as well as I can. Yeah. So, I mean, I prefer he calls a land because he's like a genie on the phone.
Yeah.
So let's see. 5 of them had title problems. And this is something we run across a lot. And sellers will lie. They won't tell you. And there's no way of finding out until you take this to the title company. I think a lot of the time, especially with land, we'll find out these people that, we get under contract for $5,000. They have like an $80,000 loan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And so with houses.
And the property's worth like $10,000.
Yeah.
It's like negative equity.
Right.
Yeah.
And they think that title is just not going to see that. Same thing with houses is that a lot of these people, they'll say, oh, yeah, it was in my father's name, but I already switched over. You find out it's still in probate.
Oh, God.
Right. And that's just, it's going to take months on end.
Yeah.
And so who knows, the market might shift at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 8-2 rule, 8 with title problems, 4 were under contract with other wholesalers. And 6 of those we closed. So that's 26.1% out of the 23 that we had. But a lot of these are nationwide.
Gotcha.
So we're looking to lower the contract and a higher quality conversion.
Right. So revenue out of those, you said 8 or 6?
6.
Okay, 6. How many of the, what was the assignment fee total? Do you know?
Around 70.
70,000. And this was just last 30 days, right?
Yeah, December 11th to.
That's a little bit over. Yeah.
So $70,000 in closed revenue. Okay. And if we subtract 2,200 in ad spend.
Yeah, we're at a good ROI.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out and share with the viewers what that ROI is. Okay, cool. So
yeah,
pretty good month, pretty good December. I think you guys could agree on that. Yeah. What's the next step for you guys?
There's 41x return if you're wondering.
41?
I mean, that's what ChatGPT is telling me.
Did you put that in? Yeah.
So okay, let's do the numbers live. So you said 70,000 divided by what? On a
$1,700 contract. So $1,700 like per closed deal in ad spend, or
11,000 divided by 1,700. So your average ROAS right now is 6.4.
Okay.
But if you're saying $70,000 subtracted by
the cost per closed deal through Bolt.
Yeah.
It's 1,700.
1,700.
6.5. How'd you get 34?
I don't know. ChatGPT's wrong. I could have put it in wrong though.
I was like, wait.
I'm not. Yeah. See, I got an F in math or a D in math, so we're not gonna.
Yeah, I was like, wait, because I did our ad spend, I did our management fee, and 70,000. Actually, let's do the math right now. Let's do it live.
Okay.
So, because I actually want to get the number. So you guys spent 2,200 last month in ad spend, plus, how much did I charge you guys? I don't remember.
We got it a little bit close to 300. It's like 2,000 like on the low.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say you guys 5K. You guys spent 5K total last month, and then $70,000 divided by 5,000. That's a 14x ROAS.
Okay.
So for every dollar you're putting in, you're getting $14 out.
I mean, yeah.
For last month, I think that's pretty good. I don't think that's bad.
I mean, that's not.
It's okay.
And like we spoke about, that's not going to be every month, right?
Exactly.
Because we're trying to narrow down a lot of those terminations, and that most of the time that comes due to markets, like you spoke about. So as long as we can stick in those better markets, right? Because I mean, what it comes down to is, are there any buyers around here?
Yeah.
I'm not going to fly out there and stick up a yard sign either to try to find someone who's living there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyways.
Okay. So you guys are doing last month you guys did 70K a month. What is the next milestone or goal you guys are aiming for?
It's consistent 100K months is what it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's if you're taking a lot of action, you have a good closer team, you're gonna have months that are like really good like that. But it's important to know that not every month is like that, and that is our best month. So sometimes we'll have months that deals are not going through. Certain times a year, for some reason, we'll just have more title issues than not. And so right before December, especially on the land side of things, we just had like every other deal had like an insane amount of title issues.
This month's been pretty good for land.
Yeah, well, yeah, this month's been good, but like the months before that, it was like we were in a cloud because it was just having so many issues. Sorry, what was the question?
What was the goal what was the goal, or what do you guys go do to spread to 100 again?
Right. So yeah, 100K,
I almost forgot.
100K consistent months. Like if we could get 3 months in a row like that, that's kind of our short-term goal right here is what we want to hit. And the biggest thing with that is just having consistent inputs and outputs on both sides, from the acquisition and disposition. I think what kind of happens a lot of times with a lot of wholesalers, including us, is we'll sprint really hard to get a bunch of deals under contract, and then we got a bunch of deals under contract, and now we got to sell them. So now we're going to be spending all of our time on dispo and working with, even though we have a team that does dispo, we'll be working just really heavily with the team on dispo. And then we turn around and we're like, oh wait, now our acquisition's not there as much as it was. So it's kind of just having consistent players on each side of the business is how we're going to be able to flatten that out.
On a day-to-day basis for you guys, obviously business is a inputs to outputs equation, right? So what does that sort of daily routine schedule look like for the both of you guys?
I mean, we start pretty early, like not too early, but
how early is early?
About 7 my time, sometimes earlier, but
yeah, it's like we'll have times, like it really depends on like the time of the month, because we'll have times where we need a lot more work put into the business. So sometimes we're waking up at like 5 every day and we're working all day because we have way too much stuff to get done. Other times we're able to be more lax and 7, 8, and then we'll just work.
More hours. Yeah, I mean, more hours work and then sleeping for sure.
Do you guys like calendar block specific hours for a specific task, or what does that look like?
So So I've actually just started doing this, especially with land. I think it's a little bit harder because we just started the Facebook ads. Grant's kind of running all over the place trying to keep everything aligned. With the land though, I'm able to have a little bit more of a more dedicated schedule just because we have more players in place. And so usually on Mondays, I'm just organizing the whole business. After the weekend, I'm going in, I'm checking title work on every single one of the deals. I'm calling the title companies, I'm calling the buyers, I'm calling the sellers, making sure everybody's still on board with the deals that are the title company. And the next thing after that is I'm going to go straight into list pulling, seeing what lists we're going to pull, what markets we're going to target. And then from there, I'm on Google Meets with the team. I'm touching base with everyone, making sure everybody knows what they're doing. And then basically Tuesday through Friday is basically just marketing and sales. So I'm on the phone pushing the ball forward with the team, and just trying to get more deals closed.
Okay, because something I like to do on these podcasts is I have a list of questions that the previous guests wanted to ask you guys, and I told them they don't know anything about you guys.
Yeah.
They don't know how many deals you guys are doing. I just say our next guest, right?
Okay.
And one of the questions that they wanted to ask is, what is the order that you guys prioritize your tasks throughout the day?
Yeah. So, I mean, I basically just like we had that. I basically just explained, what that thought process is. And we've had entire Google Meets, just like, all right, we are all over the place. What's most important right now? And so that's kind of how we came up with that list. But obviously, most important is the deals that we do have at the title company, ready to close, buyer, seller agreed. We're good to go. We're checking up on those. So that's like most important. And then right after that is obviously the direction we're headed in. So where we're pulling lists, where our next marketing is going to be is the next most important part. And then from there is the next priority after that is, getting more sales and speaking to sellers and speaking to buyers.
Okay. What about you, Grant?
We don't have like a direct schedule.
Okay.
Because every day is different, right? That's the greatest part of this game.
Yeah.
Is that no day is going to look the same.
Correct.
Some days, you'll plan on making those calls, but, maybe you need to order a bunch of photos for properties. I like to make sure, whether it's for land or houses, like to make sure that whatever's priority is handled first.
Like what? What would be considered priority to you?
No matter what I tell my closer, who to call, what to do, whatever, if a new lead comes in, that's top priority over anything. And that's what it comes down to. The least priority is obviously leads that are in like the 9th day of 10 days of hell. Okay. Those, or I was caught making an ad photo at the start of the morning, and it was the biggest waste of time, right? So like some things are like the biggest waste of time, and it could be done at another time. So it's going to be different for every business, but you have to figure out what is moving the needle forward every day for your business. Focus on that, and those other things that aren't doing anything to move your business forward, save those and do those later.
Which for 99% of people is just making phone calls. Just start talking to people.
But most people don't like making phone calls. They want to spend time creating their website or fucking trying to build their buyers list with no deals to sell to.
That's okay, Ben. Not everyone has to hit those levels.
Dude, I love it. Somebody's got to clip that. Cool. The next question they have is, what was the first role you guys decided to hire out? And or if you haven't, what is the first role you will hire out?
So for the land, because it's different on each side of the business. For the land business, the first role I hired out was help on acquisition.
Why? Sort of walk us through your reasoning there.
So it was actually just advice that I heard on a podcast, and I don't remember which one it was, but somebody just told me along the way, like, whatever you do, don't hire a dispo person first, because I feel like that's usually what will happen is people have a lot of deals and they're focused on selling them, and they're like, oh, this is taking my time right now, so I should outsource that. I would not do that, because I think that the reason is because speaking to buyers is a much more, you need to have a lot of knowledge. You need to be able to prove to yourself that you kind of know what you're talking to these buyers. And so you're going to get asked a lot of questions that a VA that you hire is going to be like, oh, I don't know. I can check with my partner. And you don't want that. You want to be on the phone with them and be able to give them direct answers. This is what's going on with the property. This is the reason they're selling. This is the square footage, everything with the property. You need to be able to hit on the spot, because most of these guys, they're busy doing other projects. They're doing development. If they're big players, they're busy. So you don't want to waste their time. You need to be on the phone and know exactly what you're talking about. Now, as far as the acquisition, I think that's a little bit easier, because especially just specifically on land, because the conversation is just a lot more simple, and I feel like we have that process built out a lot more. So I hired an acquisition person, trained him on everything I knew, and then kind of set him up, and then I was working on dispo.
Ben, I'd say, just for anyone who hasn't hired anything out yet, this is definitely a fault in a lot of people, and I like to be an entrepreneur before an entrepreneur.
Explain that. Elaborate on that.
I like to know everything that's happening with the company and how to operate every single aspect of that company before I decide to even consider hiring someone to do that. Because they might have a question for me, and if I know it as much as they do, where are we going? What are we doing?
Ooh, that's powerful.
Right? So, I mean, Jeff Bezos, he was selling books out of his garage, right?
Yeah.
Like, he didn't just hire someone to sell books.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you have learned every aspect of your business, the position to hire out is a position that is taking up most of your time. You need to look at that and you need to realize, is this something I could hire out, or is this something that I need to do? Fortunately for us, you know, mainly for the land side of things, just because, you know, that's our foundation to the industry. Most of those tasks that we were doing, we could hire those out, right? Our time is more valuable than money. Okay. So it's just what there's to.
I love that. Okay. So starting out, if somebody was starting out specifically wholesaling, you tell them to delegate the either the admin or the acquisition manager first. Is that correct?
Well, not acquisition manager. I'd hire just somebody who's making calls.
Okay.
And then
a caller.
I think, a caller. I think, you know, an acquisition manager's later. But like for the Facebook ad specifically, we kind of treat that a little bit differently because they're higher cost leads and they're just higher quality. So before we hired anybody, we did a bunch of interviews trying to talk to people who we think could handle them, until we landed on people who were, you know, they were westernized and they lived in another country, so the cost of living was cheaper. And so that was the hire for the Facebook ads. That was
Gotcha.
I mean, if someone's brand new to the industry, I'd hire yourself, right?
Okay. You'd hire who?
Yourself.
Oh, okay.
So hire, you know, if I'm brand new to the industry, I don't know anything about it. The last thing I should be thinking about is hiring someone.
Yeah.
Like,
making dials.
if you have, if someone was to come up to me with $5,000 and they say, "Yo, Grant, like, how do I get my first deal? I got $5,000," and say, "Go spend that on yourself. Go buy some books. Go buy some books. Go get right. Then hop into the industry."
What books would you recommend?
There's so many good books. First of all, shout out to Alex Ramosi. Like, we listen to everything he says.
Yeah.
But everyone's gonna have their own books. I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? So
Who are some people that you listen to?
dude, I would say the one person who is gonna get you, like, let's be frank, anyone who's hopping in this industry, where they're gonna start is on the phone. Right? Like, that's just, there is nowhere else to start. The one person I would definitely take so much advice from as far as sales goes, like Eric Klein.
I agree. Yep.
Right? If you can close at the scale that he closes, you can build out an industry.
Yep.
But again, you got to invest that into yourself before you invest into other people.
I think another thing also, like on the books thing, is don't just like read books, just general books. Like, I think the most important thing is to read books on the exact thing you're struggling with now. Because I think a lot of the stuff we read in books, like if you're like reading a book on, like, let's say
Harry Potter
management, well, I mean,
have you read that one?
Yes, I have. It's a really great book.
It's tough.
But I read that book when I didn't even have a team, and so like a lot of the stuff I read, I kind of forgot, and because I don't have experience with it, I don't really know how to apply it.
Yeah.
So I would only read books that are like on the level that you're at now. Like if you're trying to get into business or wholesaling, just read books on like the activities you should be doing, not high output management. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One, the Purple Bible. It's a good one.
What is that?
Robert Kiyosaki.
Purple Bible. Oh, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Purple Bible. I've never heard about that. That's a good way to put it. Okay.
Second one, Think and Grow Rich.
I've never read that one.
But ultimately, the first one is the Bible.
Yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad is how half of the entrepreneurs are in business.
Oh, and another one is the Go Giver. That's probably one of the top books I've ever, like, your book you go out read today, like, and you're getting started, is that book. That's a huge book.
Absolutely. Joe from the previous podcast asked, what are you guys doing right now to stand out in a sea of wholesalers? What makes you a bit different?
We can't share that information.
What snippets can you give us? You got to give them something.
Like general advice.
Don't share too much.
No, but just more general advice is get really good at like I was saying earlier, get really good at the marketing channel you're working on now. Like if you just focus on that, like know that like your competition is just like you. Like they're people who are just started making calls from their house and they're just trying to get it good at sales. Like just focus on cold calls. Like just focus on that is what I would say.
Okay. So let's talk about competition. Is that something that scares you guys?
No.
Why not?
I don't care. There's so many houses. There's so much land. Doesn't matter. Right? Because what happens is if you put that in your back of your mind, like there's Ben, you know how much competition you have?
Me?
Ben, you have thousands of people in the
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
right?
Yeah.
You care?
No.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Right? Because if you did care, guess what? You ain't sleeping at night.
No, I wouldn't. I sleep great at night.
Everything's a head game. Everything. So
let's talk about mindset. Since you brought it up.
dude, that's probably the most important thing ever. So I mean, I've played sports throughout my entire, life for the most part. So when it comes down to it, is like whether you're on the track, whether you're on the field or the court, it's like you're there, get after it. You know what I mean? Like you got no other there is nothing else, or else you're gone, right? You either do it or you're gone. And so if you could think of it as, bro, what do I have to lose? I got all these people, I got all these haters after me.
Yep.
And let's just say someone's down to like the last $5,000, like spend the money. What do you have to lose, bro?
Yep.
Your mindset's so important. It really is. Like you gotta be clear.
What are some mindset shifts that you guys have had that have been pivotal to your guys' success?
The biggest one, and like we just talked about, that Go Giver book. You gotta provide value to other people first. Like nobody you talk to on the phone, nobody you're in a relationship with owes you anything. And I think it's approaching those conversations and being like, how can I help you? Like how can, like on a buyer side, how can I find you a deal that you're excited about is absolute number one thing.
I have a tricky question for you.
Okay.
Let's say you're a beginner, right? You transparently have nothing to offer. How can you earn somebody's relationship, or how can you build a relationship with somebody that's a little bit more established to where they will be willing to share what's working with you?
If you're starting out and you don't have money, you do have time. So I would forfeit your time to that person and do tasks for them that maybe don't require a lot of experience, but you got the time available and just work really hard at that.
Awesome. What about you, Grant? You got any mindset shifts you wish you knew when you first started?
More faith.
Let's talk about that.
Dude, I ain't gonna get too much into it, but I had a rough turning point in my life. And if it wasn't for faith, it was kind of like I ain't got nothing else here for me. And so I brought that same faith into business. It was like, I know just from what I went through that I could build something up and it could be torn right from underneath me. But as long as I have faith, I could do it again.
Are you willing to share something you went through?
No, I'm not, because it was a relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a little tough. But I mean, I care, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's, you got to look forward. But faith for me is like the biggest mindset, bro. Faith, and Carson and I, we really rely, like, trust is a huge thing. Trust.
Especially in the real estate space.
Like, 100%. Obviously, I used to have some problems with trust, just giving that out. But that was a mindset that other people gave me opinions to have that mindset. And so that's why I had a trust issue. But over time, that changes. So, I mean, just go into everything with like trust for sure.
Interesting.
Faith and trust. I think if you can hold those two things, I think you'll be all right.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Do you guys feel like there's anything else you guys wish you knew when you first started that you're willing to share with people that are watching this?
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in. We have all the time.
Oh man. I mean, we've covered a lot of the big ones. Like, number one thing, just focus on one thing. Like, don't bounce around. Like, if you decide, like spend some time planning what you're going to do first, obviously. But once you like make an informed decision on what you want to go after, then just do that one thing. Don't bounce around. That's like, I think that's the number one thing that burns people out, is starting over and over again in different areas, even just within wholesaling. It's just, that is exhausting.
Okay. What about you, Grant?
You want to repeat that question?
What are some lessons and mistakes you wish you knew or avoided when you first started?
Starting when I was your age, Ben.
That's a good answer.
You pretty much started when you were my age. Well, how old did you start? When did you start?
I probably started taking it serious when I was 19.
Oh shit.
The biggest thing I lived my entire life was until I had a turn was based on other people's opinions. And what that did for me was absolutely nothing, right? It was always like, we should do this, or, you know, you should do this, whatever. And it's like, okay, I listened to those opinions. At the end of the day, is like, the only opinion that mattered was my own.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, not even your own blood is going to give you the right opinions. You just have to go based on, like, faith in your gut. Like, what you know is what you need to go based on.
Is that something you're still running through, where outside peers or your environment is telling you to go one way, but you yourself know you want to go another way?
The more you develop yourself, the less your circle gets.
Expand on
The
that.
smaller your circle will get.
Okay.
There's so many bad influencers. So, like, sometimes even your best friends aren't going to be your best friends.
Mm.
Just because when someone, you know, looks at me and says, "You're different now," it's like, you're right, I am.
Yeah.
But not in the way you think. Like, I'm not different as in I don't like you no more. I'm different because I stopped hanging out with you.
Mm.
I'm a better person. You decided to continue to go to the clubs, continue to drink, whatever, you know, smoke. But I didn't. So, again, I think self-discipline and just leaning on your, you know, yeah.
What about you, Carson? Because I feel like starting the business at 19 or 16, you said, I'm sure you have, you know, your friends in high school. Because I definitely had friends in high school telling me, like, I was the outcast.
Yeah.
So how'd you navigate that?
I don't know. I had a little bit of a different story. Like, I still love all my friends in Fort Collins. Like, they're amazing. Like, I think I already had like a pretty solid group of friends who wanted to do step. I think they were maybe just less focused on like exactly what they wanted to do. But, you know, I still found that they were pushing themselves in other areas of life, which kind of motivated me to, you know, keep on the right path. But I didn't necessarily have the story of, you know, going down a bad path and then redirecting.
Sweet. Did you have something?
No.
Okay. So, as always, I like to end these podcasts with some questions from the both of you guys that you guys would want to ask the next podcast. The way it works is I'm not going to tell you anything about them. I already know who it is in my head, but I'm not going to tell you guys. I will just tell you that they are a real estate investor.
More experience?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to tell you that. They
Well,
can
that'd be based on my questions, though.
No.
Okay.
That's the challenge, right?
I gotcha.
So I'm not going to tell you if they have more experience, less experience. The only thing I'll tell you is that they are a real estate investor and they are our clients. So what are some questions you guys would want to ask them so I can write it down and
What KPIs are you tracking? Because we are not great at that. And I'd like to know what KPIs they're tracking specifically, and more importantly, why you're doing it. Like, why are they important to your business? Is probably one of the biggest ones I'm curious about.
Let me ask you this: do you right now, with the stage you guys are at, closing $70,000 last month, feel like tracking KPIs is important?
Well, yeah. So it definitely is. I wouldn't like focus on it and say like that's the reason we did. I think like especially in the beginning, it's just a brute amount of action is how you get a bunch of deals closed.
Yep.
But as you start having team members and then you have expectations for those team members, you kind of need to know, all right, this is about what I'm doing. Here's what I need to replicate in somebody else. Is important for sure.
Uh-huh. Any other questions? I can have as many as you guys can have as many as you want.
What do you believe in?
Okay.
Just that. What do you believe
just
in?
leave it out there.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, again, that's all for the podcast. I appreciate Grant and Carson coming on. My name is Benjamin, and if you enjoy this podcast, we also will be releasing a vlog after we release this podcast. So if you want to see that, click the link, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications or whatever, and I'll see you in that next video. Have a good rest of your day. I appreciate it, and goodbye.